I'm going to read the scripture. There are two more times actually. You therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Who Paul is talking to here is he is talking to Timothy. Now Timothy is a young man. And the way I understand this. Now how old he was, I don't believe anybody knows. But Timothy was a young man, and he started pastoring this church. And so what happened with Timothy, he started running into some major problems. First of all, we know in Ephesus, and we learned about that church studying in Revelation. I'll get to that in just a second. But first thing that Timothy is facing in this church or in your life, this just doesn't surround around church. You will see patterns like this in your life. First of all, it says here, Paul says, I urge you when I went to Macedonia. So Paul's taking a trip. He's seen Timothy and tells him this. To remain in Ephesus. So we know that Timothy was in Ephesus. And if you remember in Ephesus, they had some problems in Revelation, if you remember that Bible study. And in 1 Timothy 1 and 3 says this. He said, I urge you in Macedonia that you remain in Ephesus. I want you to stay there. Now Timothy's ready to leave. Why would Paul tell him you need to stay there? And here's what Timothy is facing. And he says, here's what I want you to do, Timothy. I want you to charge some that are in this congregation that they do not teach no other doctrine. So first thing they were doing is they were teaching other doctrine. What was that doctrine? Anybody want to know what that doctrine is? The law. It's people that come in and spot out their liberty they had in Christ Jesus. And they came in and started preaching to them law. That you cannot be saved unless you're circumcised. You cannot be saved unless you follow the commandments of Moses. You cannot be saved. And so then the next thing he had to deal with was fables. He tells Timothy, tell them not to give heed to fables. They were totally engrossed in wives' tales. How many's ever seen that before? I know especially the older generation, like my grandmother, she had all kinds of wives' tales. You wouldn't believe stuff she had. She's with the Lord now. But they had wives' tales. He said, don't give heed to this. They taught these things as actual fact, that this was truth. And he said, don't give heed to these fables. And another thing they were obsessed with genealogies. What were they trying to prove? That I'm of this tribe of Judah, and I'm this tribe of Levi, and I'm of the tribe of Issachar, and I'm of the tribe of Benjamin. They were trying to follow their genealogies back in time to prove that they were the seed of David. That was a big one, to be the seed. Now we all know that Jesus Christ did away with all that ignorance. But here's what they were doing. So now Timothy's got to put up with this. Now the next thing Timothy is putting up with is they had constant disputes rather than godly edification, the Bible says. Now, and then Paul says the commandment is love from a pure heart, having a good conscience from sincere faith, from some having strayed, turned aside to idle talk. So a lot of people sat around talking about things didn't have a thing to do with the Bible. And what they wanted to be teachers of the law. And Paul says they don't understand what they say, nor which they affirm. So now you would say that Timothy's got some issues at where he's at. But it gets worse. He says, this charge, Timothy, I commit to you, according to the prophecies previously made concerning you. What is that prophecy talking about? People prayed for him and the Lord spoke to him that I've got a plan for your life. And he says that you may wage what? The good warfare. So I know where I'm going, but I'm going to set a background here. Having faith and a good conscience, which some rejected concerning the faith have suffered a shipwreck. This is our war, church. This is what the Lord dealt with me on this week. This is your war. This is what I want you to do. You therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Now let's go further here, what he was having to deal with Ephesus. Take the notes. In Ephesus, that church, if you remember, they had left their first love. Do you guys remember that? Remember in Ephesus, the first church we learned about in Revelation, no, you didn't remember that because I couldn't have quoted it to you either. And it says here they had left their first love. What was their first love? Jesus Christ. A lot of churches have left their first love, and that is Jesus Christ. They have left it. They don't want Jesus anymore. It's not enough. I'll tell you this. I prayed and prayed and prayed one time for God to tell me what the key was. This was years ago before I was at this church. What will it take to build this great church? So I had all these things laid out. Maybe we'll try this. Maybe we'll try the other. Maybe we'll try the other. I started weeping and crying before God, and Jesus said to me plainly, am I not enough? Am I not enough? And you know what I said? Lord, you are. I'm sorry, you are enough. Isn't that where we're at? We're constantly fighting a battle. We're constantly, if Jesus loved you, you would not be facing what you're going through. If Jesus loved you, your husband wouldn't have left you. If Jesus loved you, your wife wouldn't have left you. If Jesus loved you, this is your battle, your faith. The devil's entire goal is to convince you that Jesus does not love you, wants anything to do with you, and his promises are a lie. A lie. If you consider Joseph, which they're learning about today. Remember, Joseph gets a promise of being a king when he's approximately 17 years old. So he's going to be king one day, is he not? And he gets this promise and a dream. And so he tells his father this, he tells his mother this, tells his brother this. And next thing you know, it'd be great when you're all cherished as a little kid. Now, I want to tell you, I didn't get a lot of pampering when I was a kid, but some people get pampered when they're a kid. And so, would you not agree that Joseph was a pampered child? He got a nice coat, didn't he? How many brothers got a coat of many colors? Nobody, just Joseph. And so Joseph gets this coat of many colors, and God gives him in a dream that he's going to be a king, and your brothers, your older brothers, and even your dad and mom are going to be bowing down to you. So he goes and tells them this. From that day forward, his life turned into hell. 9 years, his own family betrays him. Therefore, endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. He's sold into slavery. Endure hardship, Joseph, as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. He comes into the house and finally gets favored with Potiphar. Potiphar's wife is a harlot and wants to sleep with him. And Joseph, God says, endure hardship, Joseph, as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Joseph then is thrown into prison. It's bad enough to be a slave, but it's even worse to be a slave and thrown into prison. You talk about no rights. No rights at all, of any kind. And so what happens next is that Joseph then has two men. Comes to him, a baker and a cupbearer. They're in serious trouble with the king. They're about ready to be killed. You know what? Joseph answers their dream. They have dreams. He tells one of them, you're going to live. One of them, you're going to die. And what happens is it comes to pass. And what does Joseph say? Joseph says, remember me that I did this for you and that I'm not supposed to be in this jail. Do you know that man? Never even mentioned him. So Joseph has to spend 2 more years in prison. So now he's betrayed by these people that he had got set free. And so then we know that after a period of time, which approximately 9 years, 9 years, church, 9 years. 9 years, he had to endure hardship as a soldier of Jesus Christ. But you would have thought it would have ended there. You would have thought that your battle will end as soon as God puts you where you think you ought to be. Whatever plan you had, whatever thing you had drawn up, whatever success you thought there was, as soon as this happens, you will think that surely now it's good. No, now you have another battle you're going to have to face. And what battle is that? You've got to forgive those that sinned against you. Forgive them. So here comes his brothers. He has to forgive them, but skip that. What about Potiphar that threw him in jail? What about him? Now he's the third ruler of the world. He has the power to punish Potiphar for putting him in jail for his harlot wife. Now he probably should have been killed. But there's a reason that he was not killed. And I believe possibly, and some theologians believe that they knew that he knew his wife was questionable, or he wanted him killed, and Pharaoh said no, because they knew how she was, possibly. I'm throwing this out. We don't know. It's total speculation. Okay? But we do know she was an unfaithful woman. But we all agree with that. And wanted to defile Joseph. Isn't that funny how that is said that way? And so then he has to forgive Potiphar, who's betrayed him. He has to forgive the woman that lied on him, because he was lied on. That's what got him thrown in jail, was he was lied on. This is your fight, church. You must endure hardship. You are now enlisted in the army of Jesus Christ. And we are tempted daily, weekly, monthly, daily for me, at minimum once a week, where we are tempted, we are tried, we are tested. It's a battle at every corner. And this week I'm weary, I'm tired. I'm telling the Lord, I'm tired. And He tells me this: you must endure hardship as a good soldier. Has anybody in here been in the military? Oh my. So nobody's been in the military. Well, you know, everybody knows how the military works. We've watched enough movies to know how the military works. You know, if you ever watch, there's a program called Navy SEALs. Now, I'm not talking television show if there is one. I'm talking about documentaries on Discovery back in the 90s. I can't tell you the name of that thing. It's Navy SEALs. And they went through this whole thing of what they did to become a Navy SEAL. You can't believe it's possible. You watch it and you're like, there is no way people live through this, and I'm watching it. They drowned you, church. Drowned you. They actually take you and throw you in a swimming pool for 5 minutes till you drown. Can you believe this? People die from it sometimes. Rare, but they do die. They bring you out and bring you back to life. Why? So you're never afraid of water ever again. You're not afraid of drowning. You done been there. You've done been there. And this is what makes us good soldiers for Jesus Christ. You are a sorry soldier. I'm telling you, and I've said this 100 times, every single person I ever met that's never been tried in their life are sorry ministers. Sorry in advice, sorry in everything. They are no good for me. As I told you this before, a preacher one time said, I've been living the life of bliss since I gave my life to Christ. And I looked at somebody and said, that man will not be able to preach. And he could not preach. 6 days we had to put up with that torture. How many's ever seen that? 6 days of torment. I'm sorry. One of my pastors is watching this of the old days. They'll probably be ticked, but he was sorry minister. He never worried about money. He said, I've never been sick a day in my life. My wife's never been sick a day in my life. My kid's never been sick a day in my life. Then you're not serving God. Okay? That's the reward Satan gives you, not Jesus Christ. Because when you're enlisted to be a soldier, there's going to be trials and tribulations. You're going to dig holes and you're going to fill them back up. You're going to dig trees up for no reason and replant that tree. You're going to have all kinds of crazy things happen to you that makes absolutely no sense, so you can be a warrior for Jesus, just like Joseph was a warrior, just like Timothy was a warrior. Timothy didn't think he was a warrior. Timothy didn't think he had anything to offer. Timothy was ready to leave. Now, on top of everything I told you about Timothy, do you know that Timothy was sicker than a dog? He had many infirmities in the flesh. He had to fight all the time. That's why Paul said, drink a little wine, Timothy, because he was totally ascetic. What does that mean? It means he did nothing. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't chew, he didn't cuss. And Paul sent him a letter, Timothy, you're sicker than a dog. So now he's got to deal with crazy people in the church, people that want to be Jews instead of Christians. He's sicker than a stupid dog, and then everyone around him is completely obsessed with false doctrine. And then the church we know had left their first love. It seemed hopeless, did it not? Did it seem hopeless? But see, this is what happens. You're at work, it seems hopeless. You're trying to witness to somebody, it seems hopeless. And you're trying to pray, and it seems hopeless. It seems like you're praying one thing, and the exact thing you're praying against happens. This is your warfare. And the Lord wants us to stand strong and be steady. It doesn't matter what it looks like. God, you're the worst general on planet Earth. You've led me to the Red Sea and all I can see is water. So down to the Red Sea, they're standing there in water. Would you agree that if any general had led you the way God had led, you would say that's the worst general in history? That's what you'd say. But see, God doesn't get nervous. God, we never heard of it before, never seen it before. He parts the Red Sea. They go across as on dry land, and all the Egyptians died. that day, and he said this, the enemy you see now, you'll see no more after that. This is how God does things. This is what God likes. See, we like to see things before they happen, and God says, doesn't matter. If you're in a war, stand fast. Be a soldier. Now, I got a story to tell you, if I can tell without crying. If I can. In the 1600s, there was a grenadier. If you don't know what a French grenadier is a warrior he had a funny hat he wore, and he would throw grenades. He was a grenade thrower. Now, believe it or not, grenades have been around since the Chinese Empire. They've been around a long time. And these people would stand and they would throw grenades over to blow the enemy up. This is a true story, what I'm about ready to tell you. And this man one day was sitting behind a fort. And here come the Austrians up to attack that fort. And as the Austrians are coming to attack the fort, every one of the Frenchmen left their posts. He said to this guy, listen, we have got to get out of here. Now, grenadiers were warriors, but they couldn't handle this. So we're outnumbered hundreds to one. There's so many people, there's no way we can win. Let's get out of here. So they all left and ran, except for the one man. And the one man stayed behind. Now, you're thinking, boy, this guy's a total idiot. And so he stays behind and he sees all the muskets and all the guns laying around. So you know what he does? He starts loading every one of these muskets. I'm telling you, this will be a great movie. And he starts loading every one of these muskets up along the fort. And throughout the night, he kept loading and loading and loading. And so the next day, here comes the Austrian army and they roll up the cannon. And they say, we're going to blow these people out of the water today. And they roll that cannon up and he goes for his first gun. And he goes, poof. And then he goes for the second gun, boosh. And he does this all day long, and they made no progress the entire day, none whatsoever. And so that night, as they realized that this was going to keep going on and on and on, they said, listen, we need you to surrender. If you don't surrender, now remember, the Austrians have a whole army against one man. They don't know this. Against one man. And so this one man, they come to him and say, listen, we got to get you to surrender, because now what we're going to do is we're going to starve you to death. You won't be able to get any supplies in. And so the man says this. He says, I tell you, give me tonight to think about this, and I'll let you know my answer in the morning. And so the next morning, they sent the courier out, and the man said, I'll tell you what, we'll surrender, he says. We'll surrender and you can have this fort. He says, but here's what I require of you. He says, I'm going to leave our posts, and we're coming out with our colors, we're coming out with our weapons, and we're going to have the honors of victory when we come out. And the Austrian general said, well, this will be better than what's been going on. So they all get in a line, single file, waiting for the army to surrender, and out walks one man. One man, this is a true story. And he come walking out, that man did, and he had all these guns that he could carry on his shoulders. And they go, where's the rest of the army? And he said, it's just me. It's just me. And he walked through the entire line, and once he got to the end of the army line, they started yelling at him. He turned around and the Austrian army saluted him. And to this day, he is considered the first grenadier. Is that not amazing? I started crying when I read that. I thought this man was a man of faith. No matter what was happening in his life, he stood strong. He stood like a soldier. I'm not going to be moved by this. I'm not going to be moved by this mountain. I'm not going to be moved by the things that are happening in my life. I'm going to stand fast on what God says, not my situation. Not what my problems are, not what it looks like, not what you think is going to happen, not imagine the worst possible thing that can ever happen. But I'm going to stand fast on what Jesus said. I'm going to stand fast. You know, he could have ran and not fought. But I want to tell you, that day the Austrians knew there was a God in heaven by that one man. There's been all kinds of warriors in history that have done outrageous things by standing strong and being firm with Jesus. I've got plans for you. It don't matter what it looks like it fell apart. It doesn't matter. It wasn't my plan. It was your plan. Moses had a plan. Did not Moses have a plan? He's going to set the children of Israel free. And God says, I hate that plan. 40 years to the backside of the wilderness. 40 years. And then he was so weak. Look how weak he was. I don't want to do this no more. When I was 40, I could do it. When you're 40, you still got some gas to do something. He's 80 years old. He don't want nothing to do with this anymore. He's done. He's done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Send somebody else. I'm not doing it. And God got mad. See, we don't want God to get glory. That's why we need miracles all the time. Some of your lives are walking miracles. You should have lost your mind. You should have killed yourself. You should have quit. Should have gave up. Should be a drug addict. But you didn't. Why? Because you're standing fast in faith like a soldier, like a warrior. You know, the enemy does not have respect. Even Jesus don't. What's he saying in Revelation? And the fearful and the unbelieving. The fearful. Wait, whoa, fearful. You stop there. What do you mean fearful? Too afraid to stand for Christ. Too afraid to stand for what's right. Too afraid. Well, this ain't going to work out, so I'm going to do it my way. Next thing you know, it gets worse. Gets worse, gets worse. I'm telling you, if you want something mess up, have me touch it. Has that ever happened to you? Seems like if you touch it, it falls apart. You got to fix your computer mouse and the keyboard breaks in your hand. You got to fix your mouse life like that. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully I'm not preaching to myself. Every one of us face these things. But God is telling us to stand fast as a soldier. As a soldier.